All right, now we're live, so PG rated, everyone.
I should have combed my hair.
CQ Zoom, CQ Zoom, CQ Zoom, DE, WQ3Z.
WQ3Z, you are making the machine.
Guess that puts me on the mark.
That's on.
Actually, does anybody else remember that? The club bulletin station, back when we had a club bulletin station before the internet, always ended the Sunday night bulletins with, and remember, when you're on 147.06 or 145.13, you're on the mark.
Now, if anybody would ever be on the repeater, that would be a much better story.
Hey, you and I've talked.
The Nets have been doing pretty well lately. We've been generally getting between 10 and 20 people for each net. In fact, about a week or two ago, I think we got to 23 or 24.
Yeah,
I shook the tree for a while. I got every last coconut out of there. Hey, Alan. How are you doing?
I often had the idea that I should shut the repeaters off to see how many days it would take before somebody figures it out.
Hey, Lou.
Hello.
Come on, somebody say something.
Something, Ned.
Last person to speak has to run for vice president. We are still looking for a VP. So.
it really made everybody be quiet.
Yeah. Looks like somebody's got an open mic. Once in a while, just get a lot of background. So Dennis, is that a balalaika in the background? Getting a pretty good showing here so far.
Actually, since we're otherwise killing time, I will mention that about 2 weeks ago, I drove by the MARC Amfest site. I was over that way, and I kind of did a, remembrance drive through.
Get any good deals?
Field was remarkably clean.
I guess probably nobody's been using it for quite a while, so. There was no Kimberton Fair. I don't know if they've opened it up yet for any events in the fall.
Also drove by the field day site on that Saturday.
Mhm.
So
You're doing a full tour. Now you got to drive by the repeater sites. You got to go to the hospital, go to the diner.
please don't tell me I gotta go to the hospital.
The only thing they've done at the fire field is they had a movie night, like a drive-in movie.
Rich, I think your mic might be up kind of high, getting some feedback. Somebody's got some music there. Maybe that's Lou's pager.
Yeah, that was my pager.
Right. So how are you doing, Alan? How are classes going?
Yeah, surviving,
All right.
getting close to the end.
Yeah, I'm trying to just stay alive the next 4 weeks, and then
Here, I'll show you. We had fun with these. These are a little, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's basically an oscilloscope and function generator and voltmeter and everything in a USB connector.
Cool.
So we put together kits
Mhm.
for the students with all the parts, plus one of these and a breadboard. And so they've been doing all the labs on their own without having to come into the lab and touch the oscilloscopes and all that.
Do you have the
Alan,
information
I
on?
didn't see what you held up, Alan. Can you show me what you held up again?
Yeah, it's the National Semiconductor ADOM 2000.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing something like that if I couldn't do.
We
the-
must have more money at Temple because we use the NI Discovery 2, which is about twice the price.
There you go. Yeah, very similar though.
Does
Yeah,
almost as much at twice the price.
That's good. It's got open
Wait a
source
minute, don't you guys
software.
have more tuition than we have? I don't know. I worked out there.
Yeah, it's been a good experiment so far. I'm pretty happy with the way it went. Of course, it meant I had to rewrite all the labs from scratch and record videos for them. So that's kept me pretty busy this semester.
Personal instrumentation is used throughout the curriculum, starts in circuits, and they get to keep it all the way to graduation. If it works when they graduate, they can either buy it or give it back working. That's the way it works.
Yeah, we're using them in our analog 1 and analog 2 labs as well. So
Yeah, I was thinking of doing something like that if I had to do the electronics lab remotely. But I've only got 3 students, so it's not too bad. We're all coming into the lab and spacing out. But I think you've got quite a few more for the circuits and systems.
yeah, because we have all the electrical and computer engineers plus all the mechanical engineers take it. So it's a lot of students.
Who's the third student in the electronics lab, Dr. Harlow?
There's who's in there? So we got Dominic, we got Jonathan, and James. So I think James is a BSc. We're trying to pull him over to physics. Take him over to the winning team.
Does that mean you're taking him over to the dark matter side?
Yeah.
Bump.
Hey, Chuck, welcome aboard.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
All right. Looking forward to this. Always wanting to see how the cats are doing.
We're doing well. I'll
Good.
speak for the cats.
Is there any sports happening this year? It's gone back and forth so many times. I haven't really paid attention.
I think as of now, basketball is on.
Are they going to play in an empty arena or something like that?
Probably something like that.
Are classes still in person?
Yeah, so far we've managed. You can go, Curtis.
I was just saying it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Okay. Yeah, I was a Bucknell grad, and so I've been following their dealing with the with COVID, and they just announced the suspension of online or of classroom classes for a week because their COVID cases went from 0 to 10 in like 2 days.
Yeah, it's scary. Right now, I think we don't have a lot of, we've been having very few new cases per day. But a few weeks ago, there was a bit of a spike. So
Yeah.
Things can change quickly.
I guess that was the contact tracing, because you get a couple of cases, then they go out and they start testing everyone, kind of expanding circles, and hopefully catch everybody so they can get them isolated.
Temple just announced the spring semester is going to start a week later and no spring break. So we're not going to Fort Lauderdale.
I think we're doing the same. We're starting, I think, about 2 weeks late and no spring break, and it'll be a short Easter, I think, just like from Friday through Sunday.
Are you going to, is our classes going to end in person before Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Yeah, and then the finals will be online.
Okay.
Then it's kind of a long winter break, which I'm wondering what's going to happen, because it's like 6 or 7 weeks. So what are you guys going to do?
Do you know if the university will offer classes over the winter break?
Haven't heard anything about that, so I guess they're not planning to. But I guess they wanted to have the break when the weather is terrible, so people aren't going to go out and get COVID.
I guess you never heard of skiing, right?
Yeah.
That's an outside thing. So, well, except for going inside and having hot chocolate or hot brandy toddy or something.
Hot chocolate kills coronavirus. I'll stand by that. Jim, it looks like you got one of your public service shirts, the MS volunteer.
Yes, I do. I was thinking of Bob, and I see him on there. So, yeah, I miss those public service events.
Yeah, those clipboards have had an extended vacation this year.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I have that shirt. I have it in, I think I have the red one and I have the orange one, but I missed the one they were giving out the blue.
Yeah, these are nice. I think I have every color in the spectrum.
So how are you doing, Bob?
Pretty good. Just got off the phone with Verizon, had a knockdown drag out with Verizon.
Oh, that's always pleasant.
Yeah, it was very, very pleasant. Yeah. So hopefully tomorrow they will get my internet to work again.
We were on the phone with them today also. They did a service upgrade of their software, and now they're in the next 2 days supposed to do a re-upload of the fix for the service upgrade of software they did.
Upgrade.
And the guy told me the router that I've had for 3 years is incompatible with my DVR box. I said, that's interesting because you sent them to me at the same date. So instead of charging me for a new one, they're going to send me a courtesy one to put in. They don't know what they're doing. They just changed the screens and made them so that you can't read them. I got a neighbor who can't watch TV now because she's visually impaired. She can't read the anything on the screen anymore. And just the you'd hit pause and it would pause, and then 3 seconds later it would go ahead and you couldn't pause again.
But it's an upgrade.
But it could be my box. They're willing to sell me a new box.
Fix it till it's broke again.
Yeah. That's all they want to do is send you a new box, charge you for it. It's not their system. I'm in Eagleville, and the closest tower for cell phones is less than a mile from me in Evansburg, and I'm connecting with a tower down in Wayne, which is 6 miles away. That's the only one I can lock into. It's line of sight. But they don't have problems. So. Better than the alternative of a black screen, I guess. So you're going to jump on Elon Musk's satellite system when he brings it out?
Satellite phone?
Oh, he's going to put up a satellite system so everybody can get internet no matter where they are.
He's got, is it 600 satellites that he's putting up or something?
Yeah,
Crisscrossing
something
the
like that. He's going to blanket the Earth. I'm waiting for things to start crashing together and falling, 24 hours a day now.
A lot of bandwidth.
Sure, NORAD loves the idea of putting up more pieces of junk into space.
Just think of the bandwidth management problem. If everybody can access the satellites.
Yeah, I think those satellites, they're really more for remote areas or for very, very high priority traffic. Like I think one of the things they can do is like connect from the East Coast to the West Coast with very, very low latency, like a few milliseconds less than a ground line. So it would basically be that, and maybe like if you're in the middle of Africa or something and you need connectivity there. But any reasonably densely populated area, the bandwidth would just be overwhelmed.
Well, the latency time is a function of the satellite's altitude.
Yeah, I think these are all low Earth.
Right, and also if you compare with fiber optics, right, the waves travel slower through glass. So it'll be much faster across the Atlantic. Great for traders.
Yeah.
Alan, have you ever seen the patent for the hyper light speed antenna?
No.
I should send you a link for that. There is actually a patent, a US patent for a hyper light speed antenna. So I really want to build one so I can do day trading on the London market, I think.
Did you want to get started, Rich?
Yeah, I guess we should.
All right, let's start this up.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Rich Russo. I'm president of the MARC Radio Club. Welcome to the October 27th, 2020 meeting. We normally do a introduction roll call. My name is Rich, KB3VZL. I'd like to do it alphabetically. Whoever has the letter, their last letter of their call sign that starts with an A, B, or a C, please check in now.
I don't know if I should check in, but this is KD2RHC. I'm presenting.
Thank you. And your name?
Lauren
KD2RH.
C.
Okay. You're a guest. You're welcome to check in. Anyone else?
I believe I should also check in as well as a guest. My name's Terry, and my call sign is K2UCB.
Okay. How about D, E, or F?
Jim, W3JNF.
Jim?
Curtis,
GHI.
sorry, Curtis, KC3NNE.
And this is Lou, WX3I.
JK or L?
Brian, AA3BK.
MN or O?
AC3N Kai.
KC3 IGM.
Where do we leave off? PQR?
Is Jeremy, N2ZLQ.
STU?
Chuck, KB3RLP.
And Dennis, K3DS.
STU? VWX? Y or Z?
Alan,
N3 JIZ.
Okay, Bob, we got you, and someone else was trying to.
Alan, KU2Y.
And always at the end of the list, we do this way, WQ3Z. But I know I'm making the machine.
Okay, anybody else we didn't get?
Yeah, actually, I was at the beginning. Sorry about that. I'm Dawson, KC3NNB.
The penalty for that is he's vice president.
And anyone without a call sign? Okay. All right, next I'd like to call for the treasurer's report. Lou, what do you got for us?
Well, we currently have $15,424 in the bank. So we're in good shape, and we have 73 members.
That's up a few. Good. Secretary's report from Jim.
Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. And how about membership committee report?
Nothing to report other than lose 73 members.
Okay. All right. Public relations, Ted.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Oh, we have someone else joined us, Richard Stewart. Hello. Nice to see you.
Hello. Let me get my call letters in there. K3ITH.
Jim, K3RTU.
All right, Jim, you made it.
Got another one. Okay. Public service. Bob, anything for us at this point?
No, nothing. We just got a confirmation on the Vietnam Veterans Run that will not be held this year. So that's pretty much our last event. And so I guess the clipboards are just sitting around, putting on their COVID weight and being lazy as lima beans. And I guess that's about, they'll have to get busy for next year, I guess.
I guess we're gonna have to get some T-shirts printed up with nothing on them.
Yep, there you go.
It's a shame, but it's understandable. It's a situation we don't control, and hopefully it'll change soon. Tech Services, Dennis, do you have anything for the good of the group?
No, nothing to report.
All righty. Mr. Vice President, Jeremy, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, a couple of items. So the nets are continuing to go well. So every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Been getting anywhere from 10 to 20 check-ins each time. So if you haven't been on the net in a while, by all means, do check it out. We usually have a good time. It's usually either Mitch or myself and a couple of other people, sometimes jumping in, usually keeping that going. So nominations are still outstanding. We have most of a slate at this point. I think nominally nominations would close at the October meeting, but we are still looking for a vice president. So that's an important job. If anyone is interested in doing that, please contact me. I may be reaching out a little bit in the near future because nominations will have to close relatively soon because the ballots have to go out in November, and we'll be voting by mail, by email, and we'll be counting the ballots and announcing the winners, or I guess winners, yeah, or whatever you want to call it, at the November meeting for offices that will start in January. So that's basically elections. We are looking for someone willing to run for VP. It's an important job. Not too much responsibility inherent in being VP, but it is kind of a stepping stone to leadership, and it would be nice to have some fresh blood joining us on the board. So that's all I have to say about nominations.
What's the window for counting the votes? Are we counting them just that night, or is there a 2 or 3, 4 day lag period?
No, the Supreme Court has to rule on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
When do they have to be postmarked?
Yeah, as long as it takes the email to get in. Yeah, I mean, I'll figure it out on the day of, but it'll probably be like by noon that day, just to make sure that I have enough time to get the ballots and count them. I mean, not that there's a massive number with like the 20 votes that we get, but just because before this meeting, I have a couple other meetings, so I want to make sure I have the time. Actually,
As
Tuesday.
a historical note, the Constitution specifically leaves responsibility for selecting the electors to the states.
Okay. So where's our electoral college here?
Using the unreliable popular vote, perhaps?
Okay, no announcements, but I did see something about the fact that the FCC is trying to charge a $50 fee to get licensed sometime in the future. I'm sure the ARRL is going to fight that. Haven't had a chance to really look into it, but I just saw an email yesterday. Somebody mentioned it. I don't know if it's valid or not, but that's something we don't want to incur if at all possible.
I think that's kind of a specious argument, though. It's $5 a year. It's a 10-year license, and you sit down in front of your $1,500 transceiver.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would like to introduce our speakers for tonight, since you're more familiar with them, I will pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Rich. This is a presentation I've been looking forward to for a while. So over the past year or so, Alan Johnston, who's a faculty member at Villanova, has established a new amateur radio club and a CubeSat club, which have been very active over the last year or so. They've been engaged in a number of different activities. They've built, well, I don't want to steal too much of their thunder, but they've been building some things, setting up a satellite ground monitoring station, doing some activities on field day. So I'm very happy to have some of the members of the club here tonight to talk a little bit about what they've been doing. So joining us tonight, we have Curtis Aaron, who's KC3NNE, North Northeast. We have Dawson Duckworth, KC3NNB. We have Nick Florio, who I think is not licensed yet. The important word is yet. Right. We have Terry Yuan, who's KD2UCB. We have Kai G, AC3EN, and Lauren Hurley, KD2RHC. So take it away.
Kai's presenting. He's just attending the meeting.
Okay, he's not a presenter. All right. He does have to take the test then.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
All right. So I hope everyone can see the presentation.
Yeah, we were just getting some digital modem noise coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, Lauren, is that the AnyDesk?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, may I ask if you're not presenting, please mute your mic.
Yeah, I'll turn on the AnyDesk. That's the remote access software for our radios. I'll turn that on at the end so you guys can get to see how that works. All right. Share my screen again. Okay. I think Nick, you're starting. You want to start us off?
Yep. So good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Florio, the current president of Villanova's CubeSat Club. And I've kind of been there since the beginning, so it's been great to kind of see our progress. And tonight we're going to go over some of the activities that we've been doing the past year. So I guess I'll just kind of briefly introduce myself. I am actually a Nova grad, class 2020, and I'm also in my 5th year at Villanova, working on a master's in electrical engineering, specifically in RF engineering, microwaves, antennas, and photonic systems.
Yeah, and I'm Curtis. I'm studying computer engineering and economics. I'm a senior at Villanova.
I'm Dawson. I'm a senior studying electrical engineering and minoring in astrophysics and astronomy.
I'm Lauren. I'm a physics major. I was the secretary of CubeSat Club last year, and I'm currently the president of the Villanova University Amateur Radio Club.
And I'm Terry. I am the current treasurer of CubeSat Club, currently majoring in computer engineering, and I'm a sophomore. So for tonight's program, we got a few sections. They all state the stuff that we've been doing since the last academic year, so from 2019 till now and beyond. So we'll talk about the CubeSat simulator, building antennas and our SatNog station, the AMASAT project, STEM outreach, the field day that happened during the summer 2020, and some goals in the future.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with the CubeSat simulator. So to start, what is a CubeSat exactly? So a lot of small satellites containing experiments, have been launched alongside some bigger satellites as a side payload. So a professor at Stanford University, Bob Twiggs, came up with a standard to basically make it, a more modular standard so that multiple satellites could be packed together. And he came up with the CubeSat standard. So each unit of a CubeSat is a 10-centimeter cube. So there's 1U CubeSats, which this satellite is, and then there's also 2 and 3U satellites. And obviously, as they're small satellites, they transmit telemetry. So that's kind of how it pertains to radio. And this satellite is a picture of the AMSAT Fox satellite. Next slide, please. So one of the major projects that the CubeSat Club kind of supports is the CubeSat simulator, as you can see in that picture. So the goal, and this was a project started by Dr. Johnson, who's with us tonight. The goal is to create a satellite for the classroom, something that's low cost, open source, and extendable, that uses satellite technology. So we want something that can transmit telemetry, has solar panels, and does a lot of the same things that a satellite does, but is available to you, is in the classroom, is something that students can can put their hands on. Next slide, please. So as far as the specifications of the CubeSat simulator, it has a 3D printed frame, working solar panels with rechargeable batteries, and then there's also sensors to monitor the solar panels and the batteries, as well as there's a tape measure monopole antenna. It can also use an SMA antenna. There's a STEM payload board, so that helps us achieve the extendability. So that's something that students can use to do some engineering on their CubeSats and extend the satellite to give it some more capabilities. And as mentioned, we have the telemetry, so it actually uses the same telemetry packaging that Fox does, so you can decode it using the Fox satellite. And it does that using the GPIO of the Raspberry Pi with that bandpass filter. Next slide, please. So here you can see the tech stack all laid out. So kind of the flat satellite version. On the left is that Raspberry Pi. And then next to it is the solar panel board with that has all the current sensors, as well as some IO for charging and a power button. And then in the middle is a battery board, and that's the STEM payload board all the way to the right. These are all custom boards that were designed by Dr. Johnson, as well as a couple of hams from, I believe, California. Next slide, please. So the CubeSat simulator is a project that has been supported by AMSAT, and as you guys probably know, AMSAT, they have the Fox satellites and the amateur radio repeaters in space, and one of their big goals is education and outreach, and these CubeSats have been a great tool in helping AMSAT achieve that. So as you can see in that picture, that the CubeSat simulator is something that students can touch. It's not a several $1,000 prototype. It's something that's inexpensive and that students can get their hands on. And satellites, you have to wait for them to pass over you. They're not always there. So this having telemetry that's always there, and being able to interact with it, and is something that students have responded to very well. As kind of that relationship between AMSAT and the CubeSat Club has definitely been spearheaded by Dr. Johnston, who is the Vice President of Educational Relations there. And actually, one of the things that we were able to do is help Dr. Johnston launch the CubeSat simulator at the Hamvention this spring, or maybe it was last spring. Anyways, and that was definitely very very interesting and very exciting. And additionally, AMSAT owns a couple of the simulators that they can loan out to some classrooms. So it's definitely a great way to get some of these these amateur radio and space technologies into the hands of students, and with a very low cost. Next slide, please. So if you wanted to build your own CubeSat simulator, as I mentioned earlier, it's all open source. So if you go to cubesatsim.com, there's a link to the instructions, which are on GitHub, on how to build a CubeSat simulator. And the bill of materials is, I believe, around $320 for the total project. So it's a great way to build a miniature satellite for that's pretty inexpensive. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a very extendable project. So part of the CubeSat simulator is using it for education and some future engineering projects. And next, I'd like to invite Nick to talk about how he used the CubeSat simulator in his senior design.
Yeah, so as Curtis said, we really extended or tried to extend Dr. Johnson's 1U CubeSat simulator. So for this, it was a design for 2U to handle a little bit of a larger load. We had a MARC reaction wheel payload, which was 2 DC motors drawing around 12 volts. And we created our own custom distribution system. And that was actually the PCB that you see on the bottom left. And we also had like a telemetry payload. And basically, we were just integrating our own distribution design within Dr. Johnson's CubeSat simulator environment. And we wanted to hit a few goals. One of them was 90% efficiency. We got around 80%. So there was still work to be done. But yeah, as you can see on the bottom right, kind of our setup was we had the halogen lamp acting as the sun. And then we had solar panels and then a boost converter boosted up the voltage for the battery charging circuit. And then the batteries were basically feeding the power to the reaction wheel payload and the telemetry payload. Next slide, please. So just wanted to blow up the main picture. We got it to work simultaneously, so that was great. And as I think Curtis was mentioning about the telemetry, that's actually some telemetry, a capture that I got from when we were running the code, and that was in PuTTY, I believe. And then on the bottom chart, that's just more telemetry of our constant run of the reaction wheel motors going. So next, I'd like to hand it off to Dawson to talk about SatNogs.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the Villanova CubeSat Club's satellite monitoring station. If you look on the right there, that's actually our antenna. This is a project that we worked on in the fall of 2019, and we had fully operational by January, February of 2020. It's a project that we wanted to work on for a while. As Curtis said before, the Villanova CubeSat, or the CubeSat simulator, what it did was it allowed us to look at telemetry and interpret it, but that was all in a classroom. So the next step in terms of learning about satellite telemetry and satellite communication was to actually look at real satellites flying in space. So what we did was, can you actually go to the next slide? We used a couple tools such as the SatNogs network, which I'll tell you about next. We built a simple 2-meter band antenna, and at the end of this, I'll show you some of the results that we have with our working antenna. So next slide. So in order to make all this work, we use the SatNogs network, which stands for Satellite Network of Ground Stations. A ground station consists of a mini computer, an SDR, and an antenna. And these are spread out all across the globe. There's some in Europe, some in North America, some in Australia, some on islands. And this really creates a good overall picture of the satellites flying above us. And what SatNogs allows us to do is use this mini computer. We use a Raspberry Pi and collect and interpret the satellite telemetry that they're sending down and actually be able to view what the satellite was meant to send. Like I can show you later, we have pictures. So next slide. So the first thing we had to do was pick an antenna that we wanted to use. We had a couple main points that we wanted to meet. We definitely needed something simple because none of us had built any antennas other than simple Yagi antennas. Also, if it were to break, we would need to be able to fix it, and nobody was really an expert. We also needed a circularly polarized antenna because we didn't want to have to stand on the roof and point an antenna anywhere, and we didn't have enough money for a rotor. So that was our best bet. And what we ended up deciding on was picking a Lindenblad antenna. And what we did was we put it on the roof of one of our science and engineering buildings. There was actually an abandoned observatory up there, which is a perfect home for our mini computer. And the only downside being that it blocked off a little bit of the sky, but it all ended up working out. And if you go to the next slide. That is the final project. You can see on the left, that's the night that we finished the antenna. There's the whole club there working on it. And a couple days later, we brought it to the roof, mounted it up there. As you can see, the cinder blocks, those were not fun to haul up 4 flights of stairs and then up onto the roof, but we did it. And it's currently sitting there right now, and it's working. So if you go to the next slide. Oh, next slide.
You don't want to say the results? It may be lagging on your end, Dawson.
Oh, my bad. It is lagging on my end. Okay, so you can see on the left there, there's a slow scan TV image that we picked up from the ISS. And on the right there, that's a NOAA satellite image of North America right there. That's one of our favorite satellites because it gives clear images when we get it correctly. So that's very clearly North America right there. And finally, if you look in the bottom right, for 11 months and 1 week, this antenna has been running, and we've had 3,222 observations as of about a week ago. And you look at the success rate right there, it's mostly green and only a little bit of red, which is what we like to see. So it is a fully working antenna, and we are very excited to keep using it as we move forward. Next up, I'm going to hand it off to Terry, who's going to talk about the AMBASAT project.
Thanks, Dawson. So now that we covered the Satnock station and the antennas and the CubeSat simulator, the next step is throw one satellite up into space of our own. So how we can accomplish this is through the AMBASAT program. So this thing started off back in spring 2019, and Dr. Johnston found out about this over the summer of that same year and asked the club, are we interested in doing this? And as you can see from this presentation, we all said yes. And as such, the project initiated on summer 2019. And we made the purchase for the kits from the AMBASAT organization. So the idea behind this is that the AMBASAT organization, they're going to send the CubeSat up into space. And there's multiple spring-loaded mechanisms with holding 200 flight satellites per batch. And they're going to send them out onto low Earth orbit. So as of now, there's no confirmation in terms of the rocket launch date, but we have to be ready in case it happens, and that means we have to be finished with building everything 2 months prior to launch. So let's see what progress we have. So this picture that you see here, it's from mid-September, and as of now, we've done a few more things. So what you see in front of the screen with the red main board, that is the AMBASAT main board itself, and then below that are 2 sensors that we purchased with the kits. So each kit comes with a sensor, and we picked sensor 3 and sensor 6, and these 2 options that we picked, they gave us the widest range of functions that we can use for getting data from. So for sensor 3, we're getting gas, pressure, temperature, and humidity data. And for sensor 6, we're getting ultraviolet and ambient light sensor. And then if you click again, you can see this is the lower gateway, or when it first opened up and we were just about to start assembling it. So what the lower gateway allows us to do is it gives us a way to test out our satellites. And naturally, because the AMBASAT board requires a lower WAN transceiver. So using a lower gateway, we can test to see if the components that we mounted onto the satellites are fully functional, and the main board can actually send data and receive them. So just yesterday, actually, yeah, this is fine. So just yesterday, Dr. Johnston and I were able to finish up the lower gateway, and we had one of the boards that we finished up, and we had them send some small data packets through the Things network, and we were able to get them. So suffice to say, we have something going and it's working. So the current state of everything is that, as I said from the start, we bought it during summer 2019, but we didn't really start until a year later due to several delays, especially with COVID, and also just with the Satnock station construction that happened during most of last academic year. So as of now, we're doing some of the assembly, we're doing coding and testing for the satellites, and really the only main issue that we have is COVID-19 situation, which is causing some campus. So that just means that we have limited capacity and limited time when it comes to build sessions for each week. So, and also trying to fit in everyone so that they can get the chance to build some part of the Ambassad project. But overall, this is a really, really good project, and it's working quite well. Hoping to make some more progress as we go on. Hopefully, we can get most of it done by the end of the semester. All right. Next off, I'll hand it off to Nick, where he'll talk about our STEM outreach.
Great, thanks, Terry. So last year I was actually the Vice President of Public Affairs. So I know a little bit about outreach. And so basically one of our greatest goals in CubeSat Club, I think with AMSAT too, is really making space more accessible. And so the first event that we were really a major presence at, besides Hamvention obviously, was the August 2019 Robot Stock. It was in Trooper, PA, I think. And the main event was really the Lego First Robotics League kind of competition. But we snagged a table and we kind of just, as you can see, we had a few CubeSat simulators set up. We had our Yagi antennas to kind of demonstrate tracking, satellites live. And what was really great about this event was you had people from all ages and all different backgrounds, coming up to our table wondering more about satellite communications, anywhere from like 5 years old all the way up to, the 80s. People were just really excited about satellites and kind of, wondering how they might be able to bring this type of, STEM education into either their homes or their classrooms. So we did get a lot of kind of requests to learn more and possibly use them in their classrooms or homes. And we actually had a young enthused student named Aurora who actually came on campus and toured kind of what we do and went through one of our general meetings. So it's great to see the younger generations just as enthused as us. Next slide, please. So then a little while later, in I think September, we went to the Philly Maker Faire, which was definitely a little bit more exposure for us. And so it was the same setup, just trying to teach everyone about satellite communications and STEM in space. And I believe at this one, and as you can see on the picture below, we had like your build your own CubeSat simulator. So the kids kind of got involved with, all the hands-on kind of project stuff. And so that was kind of a great thing. And then I think in October, around exactly a month later, I attended NASA Goddard's Tech Transfer Industry Day. And after that, there was a barbecue that Pat Kilroy, who's on the top picture in the center, he's actually one of the co-designers and collaborators of the CubeSat sim with Dr. Johnson. So it was great to meet him. And then I actually brought along on the ride to Maryland a CubeSat simulator that I was using for that senior design project I mentioned earlier. And in the bottom picture, those are actually some of the Goddard interns for the last fall semester. And I was just teaching them kind of about what the simulator does and CubeSats in general. Next slide, please. So to kind of continue with the making space more accessible idea and theme, we've been creating a few campus partnerships. So we're going to be having a careers in space panel, I believe November 16th at 6 p.m. on Zoom. Since NOVA hasn't really been a huge space community, but I'll get into that in the concluding slide. Novocaine. So that's a volunteer organization that actually reaches out to middle school and high schools throughout the Philly area, mostly serving the underprivileged communities. So we were thinking of first hosting a webinar through Novocaine to teach students about STEM and space and the possibilities for college education and then a career in space, and then possibly donate a CubeSat simulator to one of those schools and kind of guide them along the process. And then finally, we're working with AIAA closely right now on a few things, one of them being their weather balloon launch, which they are using Dr. Johnson's updated CubeSat simulator board as their payload, and that's actually on the bottom picture there. So that's it for outreach, and I'm going to give it to Lauren now to talk about field day and beyond.
Sorry, I advanced. I thought you had one more slide, Nick.
Oh, no, it's okay.
So, yes, the CubeSat Club, we just started last year, and we were doing increasing a number of amateur radio related activities. So we decided to start a separate club just to be more organized, and we could have different people leading new projects. And for context, it turns out Villanova had an amateur radio club many years ago. We still have a call sign W3YP that we have active again. And unfortunately, campus shut down just as we were getting ready to set up our station. We were awarded a $10,000 grant from the ECE, the Electrical and Computer Engineering department. And so we have a lot of nice equipment. But the first thing we did was a remote field day. So on this picture here, you can see Dr. Johnston, I guess Alan, for those of you in the club, set up the radios in his closet, and we have our antenna on his balcony. And we used a remote access software, AnyDesk, and along with Zoom to actually make some contacts on field day. I think there were 7 of us who participated, some of whom are on the call now. And at the end of this, I'm going to show you what remote access of radios looks like. But once we got back on campus, we finally got a chance to build the things that had been shipped there and waiting for us, including a VHF and UHF antenna, which are now mounted on top of the engineering building. And we set up all the radios. We have 2 radios, ICOM 9700 and ICOM 7300. And we also have an antenna rotor. You can't really see, so there's the control box there. So with that, I think I'll pause. We have just a future outlook slide, but I can stop here and open the AnyDesk. Of course, I closed it because the sound was annoying. But sorry for making you guys wait. I don't know if anyone has anything to say in the meantime. I'll be right.
Actually, I did have a question about the cost of assembling the CubeSat simulator, because I've seen these figures of like 200 or 300. I mean, it could be very different depending on how you're ordering stuff, because you'll get killed if you have to buy like one 47K ohm resistor and one BNC connector and one of this, because everything is like $2 plus shipping. And of course, you can get 1,000 of them for like $100. So does that cost assume that you're buying one-offs, or is that if you're amortizing the cost among a lot of these?
I think Dr. Johnson could probably answer that question regarding like the specifics of the assembly of like the boards itself. But yeah, like that. There's also a light version of the CubeSat simulator that does not include as much of like the stuff that's just like basically a Raspberry Pi Zero with like a wire hooked up as an antenna, and that's definitely a much less expensive version. As far as like ordering the different components for the boards, I'm not exactly sure how that plays into the cost.
Sure, yeah, I can answer that. The 200 to 300 is if you're ordering one.
Mm.
So that's you're just ordering one. It does assume that you're willing to wait 3 to 4 weeks for some of the parts from China. For example, solar panels cost about 1/10 if you buy them in China versus buying them here in the US. So that's probably the biggest thing, that if you decided on a Monday you wanted to start building it next weekend, then you probably would be, could be more like $400. if you wanted to buy all the parts here in the US. And we are looking at having AMSAT having kits of parts available next year, and possibly even fully assembled CubeSat Sim light boards, which would be kind of cool. So you could just buy one and just plug it into your Pi and have fun with it.
Because I know in your AMSAT talk from a week or two ago, I was able to catch that on YouTube. Yeah, you said that they were talking about kits, so that might bring the cost down quite a bit. Because then if you could buy 100 of everything and make 100 kits,
yes,
that drops the cost way down.
Yeah, the goal will be to have kits for a couple $100 that AMSAT can sell and still make a profit on.
What's the actual cost to put a bird up, the working satellite?
Well, the Ambisat project that students are working on that's probably one of the cheapest. That was when we did that through the Kickstarter, it was just over $200 for the kit plus the rocket launch. So that's a pretty good deal, assuming it happens, of course. But if you want to build your own 1U CubeSat and launch it, the cheapest I've seen is about $20,000 now for a kit and a launch. But there's just a huge amount of competition these days, so that price is really it's kind of like going down by 50% every year.
So thank you guys for waiting. I don't want to interrupt the good discussion we're having, but I just figured I'd show you. We can return to questions and presentation. This is the remote access. So I'm actually I'm controlling the computer, our radios to which our radios are connected, and this is what we used for field day. The pandemic forced us to get a little creative, but what we ended up doing was having a computer with a Zoom open, and then if you wanted to talk on the radios, you would talk on Zoom. So we scratched using that's the name of this software to make contacts. So we control the satellite. We control the radios with AnyDesk, and then we talk on Zoom. So kind of a weird workaround, but I think right now we're on APRS, the automatic packet reporting. So that's why you've just been hearing fun noises and why I closed it while we were presenting. So I don't really have anything in particular to show here. I just thought you might be interested in seeing the computer, the radios on the computer. I guess I'll stop sharing and go back to the other thing.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I noticed on one of your earlier charts that you spoke of reaction wheels either in the simulator or in the actual satellite. Well, I assume that's for attitude control. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was for my senior design project. We just kind of chose a higher loaded kind of payload to kind of our power system would do. But yeah, that's for attitude control. And so the way that we kind of tried to make it work was we used a Arduino Pro Mini, and then we connected that to a motor controller, connected to the two motors. And so we ran two different codes. So one of the codes was basically a stop and go, where you'd have both motors running at once in one direction, stopping, going in the other direction, and then having alternating motors running at different times to just kind of simulate a little bit of what a load might look like on a real satellite. But yeah, that was kind of the whole reaction wheel kind of thing.
Well, I was also curious about the picture, artist rendition of the satellite in orbit. What was the attitude control model that you're following? Do you keep the solar rays pointed in a certain direction? Do you keep the antennas pointing down, or just what's the general approach to those kind of questions?
So because it was a CubeSat simulator, we didn't really need to worry about like the specifics of what would happen in space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think
you just simulate that. That's all. That's a good answer.
Yeah. So that was kind of one of the things that we had to kind of talk about because we had to present to the engineering department, And so we kind of had to say, like, if it was in space, you know, there would be a lot more things to check out. I think that's kind of the great thing about the CubeSat simulator, at least right now, because like it's really for anyone to learn. And then once you get more advanced, you kind of have to start thinking about things that you kind of mentioned and like, you know, thermal control and things like that. But yeah, no, that's a great question.
You're bringing back memories.
So yeah, so then I just wanted to talk about just the future outlook of the club, and I know I had a little spiel about that. So so Villanova and space haven't been too friendly to each other in the sense. So this summer, I was talking to a recruiter for space in Pennsylvania, and he said he looked at my resume and saw Villanova and didn't really think that Villanova was an aerospace or space school. And, you know, being in the CubeSat club for, I think, a year at that point, or a year and a half, I was like, well, that's unique because, you know, we do have some space stuff going on, but we're not like a Purdue or any of the, you know, like UCal Berkeley or stuff like that. But, you know, we do have stuff going. And so I think the last time actually that Villanova had a huge space presence was back, I think, when I was born in like the late 90s. With the space shuttle program, where I think there was like a club where they made a few payloads that got launched onto the space shuttle. So so kind of, you know, bridging along to here now, we're really trying to make Villanova space, you know, kind of known again. We're doing that through professional development and STEM outreach events, as I talked about previously. We're trying to get, you know, different clubs going and partnering with us. We really want to go to a rocket launch, you know, once things settle down with COVID. That's one of our main goals. And I think something, because I'm also working with Rutgers actually right now on their Spicy Sat, which is a sloshing control satellite that we're trying to get run through the NASA CSLI proposal route. So I think, you know, obviously we're named the CubeSat Club, but we do a lot of different things. And the major, I think, underlying goal is definitely to eventually have our own CubeSat launched into LEO. And so I think, you know, seeing from what I've been working on with Rutgers, I think we're really on a great path here at Villanova, although we're taking a slower route to things. You know, we have our ground station set up, and, you know, that's really the first access point. We've gotten, you know, experience through satellite communications with the CubeSat simulator, and also, you know, some in-flight experience, I guess you could say, when we launched the Ambisat. So yeah, so I mean, I think we're well on our way to that major goal, but we do have some great stuff coming up. And I just wanted to thank everyone for listening to our presentation, and obviously ask away any questions you have.
Thanks. That was a great presentation.
I'll ask a question. DEWQ3Z.
Go ahead, Ned.
How many club members do you have, both the Amateur Radio Club and the CubeSat, and how often do you meet?
So I think right now we're up to, says 38 in our CubeSat club, but I think it's probably close to 40 in total. And we meet every Wednesday on Zoom for now at 7 p.m.
I think there are about 12 or 15 in the Amateur Radio Club, most of which are a subset of the CubeSat, but we had a few new members. There was a recruitment fair, so there are some people who just joined that this year. So we're slowly merging into separate clubs.
Okay. And you don't have any kind of like a amateur radio operating schedule, do you? Because I know some of the people who were members of the clubs back in the 70s, and they probably love to make contact with you on the air.
I want to send either, maybe tell Dr. Harlan, tell Jeremy their contact info, and we can definitely reach out to them. We just set up the fact that I access the radios remotely today was new. We literally just set these up. So But yeah, I think setting up a schedule will be one of our future plans. I think it would be nice if every week we had a student check into the MARC net, just because a lot of people don't know what a net is, and it would be cool to have that exchange.
And at the risk of sounding like the old geezer, do you realize that MARC was an outgrowth of the Villanova Amateur Radio Club back in the 70s?
No.
Yeah, our first repeater, 14706, was on the campus in the engineering building, in a closet. Dennis, do you wish to add anything on that?
Yeah, if you go to marc-radio.org under the archives, you'll see the original 14706 repeater antenna sitting on top of Tolatine Hall, and also the homebrew repeater that was located at Villanova for probably about 4 or 5 years anyway.
Yeah, our Satnog's antenna is about 5 feet away from where that tower was, based on looking at the pictures.
The other thing you might want to do as far as the radio club is concerned is try to reach out to alumni, faculty, and people like that. We did that at Temple, and it's very, very great way to do some outreach that way too, through your alumni organization.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great idea. I know the faculty members who have been informed about this seem excited to use the radios, so we'll definitely reach out.
Lauren, did you come and visit us at Temple once upon a time? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird to think pre-COVID. It was only last year.
Back when people did things and saw other people.
The other thing is you're squawking on 144.39, which happens to be the APRS networking frequency for Delaware Valley. You might want to move off and find another frequency. That's why you get all that background junk there. Or you could put up your own APRS station at W3YP. Why not?
Yeah, we're just listening on that frequency. But yeah, I've picked up I've picked up Temple before plenty of times, since I can see it right off my balcony here. So I have a question for the club. When are we going to build an HF antenna, and what's it going to be?
Right now, since we have very little budget left, the HF antenna is going to be a long wire. It's not going to take much building.
How long? Are we talking 80-meter beverage? Have some fun.
I don't know if we have a plan. Maybe we can think about next year building one, but yeah, that's the plan for right now.
Yeah, if we could buy some wire and string it up on the roof. We have the coax and everything run.
Do like one of those off-center fed dipoles, because then you can get multiple bands on one antenna.
We do need a matchbox for that, right? Or that long wire gonna get a high impedance.
So the 7300 has an automatic antenna tuner.
Yeah, sometimes the internal tuners don't have the widest range, so it depends on what it's able to do. Sometimes you still need an outboard box if your antenna is really bad. Although if it's that bad, it probably doesn't get out very well either. But as I always say, any antenna makes better contacts than the perfect antenna that doesn't exist.
No, actually, what I say, all radios play the same until you turn them on.
Now, would there be enough room to put a wire antenna?
I think so. I mean, we were up on the roof.
Yeah, the issue is that you need horizontal clearance, whereas with a vertical antenna, all you need is permission for one little spot and then go up from there.
I think there's definitely room. I wouldn't know about clearance if it's okay to just have our wire running along the roof.
I think we can do it till somebody tells us not to.
Yeah, a wire antenna is definitely easier if it's one that goes up at 11 o'clock at night and then, oh, look, there's an antenna. That's nice.
You can always blame it for the people that were hams back in the 70s and leftover antenna.
Must have been those MARC members.
Must have been, yes.
Put a tag on it, do not touch NSA.
Danger, 50 ohms.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was very
You know what they say?
informative.
You know what they say about vertical antennas? They radiate equally poorly in all directions.
Oh, we're back to that again, huh?
I run a Alpha Delta dual sloper off my tower for 160, 80, and 40. You really can't beat that antenna. You only have to get up about 20 or 30 feet on a pole.
If anyone complains it's not high enough, they need to say it's an NVIS antenna.
And as far as the radio club is concerned, you know, we all do a lot of digital stuff these days, and that's really exciting for people that are interested in software and programming and stuff like that too. Not just this voicey stuff, you know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot, really open-ended things we can look at. I'm just happy we were able to get things off the ground, and especially being able to come back on campus this semester has been really helpful.
So are there any other questions? All right, well, let's thank our presenters for a great talk tonight.
Yes, thank
You're
you.
here.
Yeah. Very nice.
Thank you for your time and your presentation. It was informative, and
thank you for your enthusiasm.
Welcome to our meeting anytime.
Yeah, thank you for your enthusiasm and involvement. And we look forward to, after graduation, you replacing us as leadership in MARC.
Is that a promise or a threat?
A beg, please replace us. I'm serious. MARC was back in the early 80s was started, and it's like 2 out of 3 club members
No, it
back
was
then.
1977. Ned. You better read the Ned, you better read the MARC website. It was 1977, November.
But that's when the repeater was put up, or when the club was
That's when
started?
the club was formed, November
Okay.
1977.
Well, if nothing else, they'll have some really good things to put on their resume when they go apply for the job after graduation.
Yes.
All right, well, thanks for having us. We definitely, we like any opportunity we get to present, show everybody what we've done, and outreach, maybe do work with other people. So yeah, thank you for having us.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah, remember, you're always welcome on the MARC.
Translate that, I think, is they're always looking for speakers.
Well, I hope you come out to whenever we have an in-person meeting. Hope you come out and join us.
Also, Field Day and the Ham Fest. We'll do that too.
Yeah.
Is that in 21 or 22?
Whenever we're allowed, right?
There you go. Whenever it's safe. No, not when you're allowed. It's when it's safe. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Rich, do you need somebody to move for adjournment?
If you wish.
I'll move for adjournment.
All in favor?
Second.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again.
That's the end of our meeting tonight.
I know.
And hope to see you at our next one, elections. And it's usually homebrew night. Hopefully we can get some people to show and tell and possibly let us see their shack, how they have it set up. So dual presentation.
A question, are we having a December meeting?
There was no plan for one. I mean, Guess we're not having the holiday party. I mean,
We're gonna have Christmas cookies by DoorDash.
Well, everybody could go buy a small canned ham and we could open it up and enjoy it together for lunch.
As a ham fest.
would that make us cannibals?
We'll discuss it and see.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you, everybody. You have a good evening.